So I wanted to be updated by you, specialist, about what's going on with NFT and art now, because of all the bankruptcy, crash, and could you tell what is your position? What do you think about it, and what you are doing? What role you are playing in it now?
Yeah, obviously the whole kind of NFT market has seen a similar kind of financial downturn that the crypto markets experienced, first starting with the Terra Luna kind of fall, and then 3AC, and then finally, obviously the FTX, which has really just kind of battered the crypto markets. And to some degree, as go the crypto markets, so go the NFT markets, because a lot of the NFT markets are reliant on both crypto kind of collectors for the most part, but also, of course, a lot of the assets, the artworks, the collectibles in the NFT world are denominated in cryptocurrency, particularly Ether. And of course, that affects the price. So what we're seeing now in the NFT markets is that they're severely down in terms of both volume as well as value.
But I speak about the NFT in art, huh?
Of course.
Especially, I'm really focusing on that.
Yeah, no, I get you. Yeah. I get you. Yeah. And so, of course, the kind of the prices for a lot of trades in terms of both volume and value have come down a lot, both for collectibles like Bored Apes, but also for art itself. Whereas, we see the Bored Apes, which are collectibles, kind of dropping from price levels of $200,000, even $300,000 for the cheapest one. They've kind of fallen all the way down to about $80,000 to $85,000, or what's called the floor price. Similarly, we've seen Beeple works. Some of his works drop from highs of $100,000 to $200,000, all the way down to as little as $20,000 to $30,000 for the cheapest kind of Beeple works on OpenSea. In addition to the value, again, we've really seen the volumes of trade drop off quite a bit. Now, with art, with fine art kind of NFTs, it's slightly different than, say, collectibles, which tend to be a little bit more fungible, even if they're not exactly the same, because different artists have different markets. So, for example, we have seen Rafik Anadol, who is a generative AI artist. He had a recent show at the MoMA,
yes,
which is the first major exhibition at a blue chip international institution for what many consider to be an NFT artist. But Rafik's work has just gone from strength to strength. He's continued to kind of show in institutions, and his works have not been as affected as others. So clearly there are
what?
Excuse me?
Like what Rafik Anadol value now? Can you give some figures? Do you have some figures?
Yeah, I mean, Rafik has a lot of different types of work. And so while we've seen his work, decline, it hasn't been at the same kind of rate as some of the other artists like Beeple, because maybe overall it saw a decline, but when his MoMA release came out, there was a lot more interest in his work. So right now we're seeing some of his works which are selling for like a floor of maybe, and Rafik has larger editions, so it's not exactly a kind of one-to-one type of trade. But we are seeing some of his works, that have dropped, say, from all the way from maybe 3 to 4 ETH per piece to around 1 to 1.5 ETH, which is maybe a 60% drop, as opposed to a much like kind of 70 or 80% drop of others. But again, it's hard to kind of compare these things apples to apples, because they're not stocks, right? There's different edition sizes, there's different types of work. Some of his series are more popular than others. And so we're just taking kind of bits of information and trying to get an overall idea.
So how can we imagine will go on now? Because a lot of people with the birth of NFT in art, we're saying it's completely bullshit, it's speculation and blah, blah, blah. So you are, someone like you is really involved in NFT and art, right? So what is your answer to that?
I mean, I think that kind of a mindset shows kind of a lack of knowledge about the space. And it shows, a little bit too much reading the media and a little bit not enough kind of looking at the work and understand the context. I mean, the same types of, this art market is bullshit has been said about a lot of the kind of the zombie formalists, kind of painters, like 5 years ago. And many of the kind of art booms, which we've seen, kind of go to a bust. Like anything in art, you have to understand the actual context and the work of the artists. And I think that the biggest piece of evidence that NFT art is gaining ground is simply the number of kind of institutional types of shows. Right now in Kunsthalle Zurich, there's a whole kind of NFT show going on, which is really incredible.
But
and again,
there's a lack of connoisseurship in the field, I think.
Absolutely. It's a very young field. You have to remember that NFT, quote unquote, NFT art, it's a bit of a misnomer. There's not really anything such as NFT art. There's art, right? There's art, and there's good art and there's bad art, and there's art which has been presented in NFT format, and there's artists who come from an NFT background. But these fields are going to merge. We're not going to be talking about quote unquote NFT art outside the context of contemporary art.
No, but NFT, we say video art, so we can say NFT art, right?
You can say NFT art, but the way that NFT artists are kind of considered is outside the canon of contemporary art. People in the contemporary art world don't view NFT artists as part of the fine art context. They're seen as something other. They're outsider artists at the moment.
But like video was for some time, I think.
Correct, and photography
now it's swallowed by the system.
Correct. You have collectors like Uli Sig. You have very reputable kind of dealers like Mugrabi and Aquavella, who are all kind of working in this field. Obviously Pace, obviously Gagosian. So it's very clear that the kind of contemporary fine art institutions are all moving towards exhibiting, selling, and collecting quote unquote NFT art. I think everybody recognizes.
Yeah, but Human One is also physical work. That's what makes a difference. And Beeple has invented for this work something absolutely unique. It's extraordinary.
Sure.
It's like a tank with an evolving hologram of a human being.
Yeah.
With different background all the time. It's really Correct. Something special.
Yeah, I mean, Human One, I think, is in my mind one of the most important artworks of the 20th century, because it's the first artwork that really encapsulates the kind of combination of physical and digital. And the unique part, as you mentioned, is time, because we haven't seen artworks that are able to kind of form a dialogue between the artist and the collector and the public over decades, which actively. I think in some cases, what's happening is, for example, the collector of Human One, a guy named Ryan Zurer. He's the one that
interviewed.
Yeah, that you interviewed, right? So he actually made a suggestion to Mike Beeple that, hey, why don't you put stickers on the backpack of the human for each of the places, each of the institutions that the work is shown at. And so now if you look at the work, there's a sticker for Castello de Rivoli and there's a sticker for M+, and the backpack will continue to accumulate a visual history of the institutions that it visits. And so even simple things like this, the collector or the audience even, as well as the overall kind of context, meaning like the war in Ukraine, or even things around M+, all of these are starting to, can influence the direction of directly influence the artwork. And again, Mike will develop this work over the course of his lifetime. He'll continue to kind of update it. And so I do think it's a very unique medium, which creates a dialogue between the audience. So, but that's just one example, right? And I think that, again, this whole idea of NFT art is a bit of a misnomer. it's a medium, and just like any medium, it can be, it's going to be explored. And that's what Mike is doing with the Human One and the physicals generally. Actually, it's not the first time he's done a physical. He did a complete show of physical works at Jack Hanley back in, I think, January, February of this year. And he had paintings, he had pastels, he had digital prints, and yeah. So.
And you like them?
Yeah, of course, I collect them. In fact, Adrian Chang collected the largest work from that show at Jack Hanley. It was a Jeff Bezos work. So you really are seeing incredible interest from collectors to engage and to understand this new, again, digitally native format.
But they can worry about the fact that the value is going down and down, no?
Well, I mean, I don't know why that's any different than, say, other areas of fine art. Again, most collectors.
But, in contemporary art now, it's still, the level of prices is still high.
Maybe in general, but it's certainly not true for all areas of contemporary art, and not for all kind of movements of art. Obviously, like Old Masters has taken a big hit. Even in some cases, some of the artists in Impressionist have taken a hit, and some of the artists in contemporary have taken a hit. It's not an overall kind of indictment of the space that, that the prices are just one indication, I would say. In fact, what's more important, I think, is the institutional, kind of mind share that's being kind of gained by NFT artists and crypto artists. You're increasingly seeing them being shown, and I think that will continue.
What are the solution for, how do you imagine the future of NFT in art? For example, there's Urs Fischer doing his thing. What do you think about it?
I love Urs Fischer's work, and I'm a big collector, and I've been a collector of Urs's NFT series since the beginning. I love it. I think it's great. And again, it's just yet another example of artists like Urs, blue chip artists from the contemporary fine art, side of the world, exploring the medium. But we've also seen it with many other artists, Ro Etheridge, Ian Chang, on and on and on. And then, of course, you have other artists like Frank Stella. Like, I think Frank Stella's drop was incredible. Did you? So Frank Stella did, I think he's in his like late 80s or 90s or something like this. He did a show where he took 20 unrealized sculptures that he had made, in digital format, and he dropped them as NFTs. But the interesting thing here is that the NFTs, so it was a series of, it was an edition of 100 for each of these 20 pieces. So there was 2,000 works, objects total, or digital objects total. But the kicker is that the owner is able to download the digital file, and they're able to 3D print physical pieces of the digital work in any size and in any material, any color they want. So you have now a digital to physical instructional work.
Like Solewit, in fact.
Like Solewit, in fact.
And so what are the prices for that?
When they were sold originally, I think they were $1,000 per piece. So like edition of 100, $1,000 each. And if I'm not mistaken, the Whitney, I don't think it's announced yet, but I've heard rumors that the Whitney acquired a collection, a full set of them, and so did the National Gallery of the United States. So you have, again, large institutions that are collecting this work.
That's very interesting. And you think that the future of the NFT is physical and digital?
I think that the future of NFTs is kind of has a couple different faces. One is just in the kind of art side of it, and how artists want to interpret the the medium, like the digital medium, and how it creates opportunities. So, for example, Ian Chang's drop was quite interesting. He took an NFT, which is his work, called Three Face. And when you take that NFT and you put it inside of a wallet, a blockchain wallet, it will read the contents of the wallet. It'll analyze the activity around the wallet. And basically it will create a visualization of a face based on how it interprets that interaction. So every single kind of snapshot of the NFT is different based on the contents of your wallet, how much you're buying, how much you're selling, the overall market. There's all these different indicators. So that's where you have an artist who's really looking at the medium of the technology and what's possible with that technology. Now, Value, on the other hand, and of course, Beeple have a very different kind of approach where they're using the technology to bridge the physical, right? And that becomes the area of exploration. How do you kind of go from a digital to a physical and kind of create an experience in both worlds? So again, every artist will kind of look at it differently. And I think that's kind of, an important part of how people are looking at the art. And again, Calder, the Calder estate dropped an NFT as well.
Yeah, what do you think about that? Because it's not exactly art. It's
not exactly art. It's not exactly art. It was more of an experience.
Yes.
And again, I think what I like about it is that, first of all, the Calder estate is showing quite leadership and kind of ambition and trying to, again, find ways to explore it. And I think that every artist, every estate is going to have a different approach to, the technology into the space. They didn't want to just basically make an NFT of a Calder work, right? So they made an experience around it. They worked with another artist and they created a dialogue between two artists using the kind of context of Calder. And I think that's also very interesting.
Art? Is it
sure.
art or is it applied art, let's say?
Well, the artist that the collaborator artist was definitely creating art, and you could collect that art. Okay. Now, was the Calder involvement art? No, I'm not sure if you could call it like a discrete piece of art. I think that it was an artistic experience, the way that they kind of constructed a frame around the exploration of Calder's work. And then, of course, the art that was actually created by the artist, not Calder, the collaborator.
Yeah, and what is the evolution of the prices, for example, for Future NFT?
I think that the prices when they first launched, this is over a year ago, have declined. I think now, previously, and again, each of these pieces are different, right? So some of these pieces are more desirable. I've seen some of his series go for over, $120,000, $130,000 each. And again, this is an addition of 501 unique NFTs in this series. And I've seen them go as low as $10,000. I would say that the kind of average price now is somewhere around $20,000 to $30,000. I think that's more what we've seen, but it's hard to kind of generalize about these things because each of the, these NFTs are being dripped out, 5 here, 5 there, 10 here, 10 there.
Yeah. And so what advice would you give to people who would you like to buy art NFT now? It's a good period, right? In fact.
In what sense? I mean, I think it's a good period in just like in any art movement, there's incredible opportunities in the beginning, in the genesis of that movement, to get early access to the artists and the artworks that will define the period. And I absolutely think that, the NFT period will be seen as an incredibly important, movement in art because of the kind of implications of, again, this increasingly digitally native culture. I think that NFTs are, the oil and canvas for, millennials going forward and for generations going forward. People are spending less time in museums and galleries versus, experiencing art on their phone and on their computer. I do think that, these are the ways that people will experience art, and NFTs are the native collecting format. So it's also fair to say that NFTs have created a completely new generation of collectors. Now, they may not be collecting Picasso, they may not be collecting, Koons, but they're collecting artists that are kind of digitally native and NFT native artists. And they're spending, whatever, like $5, $10, $500 for these works, but they're becoming collectors and they understand collecting, and they're excited about it.
But we have seen a collector buying a collector of NFT buying a Picasso, a Chinese collector. Remember?
Yeah, that was Justin's son. But actually, I mean, even there's a lot of artists that are there's a lot of NFT collectors that are slowly moving into collecting physical fine art, and that's a natural. Again, these two spaces are going to converge, and we won't talk about NFT art anymore. We'll just talk about art. And some art will be, oil and canvas, and some art will be NFT, and some art will be NFT plus physical, etc. It's not a different way to look at art. It's looking at art with a different medium.
But we are in a difficult period. So, what advice would you give? Difficult period in several aspects, like economic period, but also for NFT, it's a very difficult period. So what advice would you give to someone who would like to collect NFTs?
I think, like any other art movement, the difficult periods are the ones of the greatest kind of creativity and also greatest opportunity. I think that now is the best time to be putting together a world-class, definitive collection of NFTs, because the prices are so low, because the access is so open. And also because this is the period of kind of most generative thought from both traditional fine artists and also from quote unquote NFT artists, because everybody's just exploring the medium. Everybody's testing the limits of what's possible, with NFTs, with physicals, and with contemporary art. And I think that's where the most exciting art comes from. These kind of periods of uncertainty, these periods of...
What are the dangers? What are the dangers?
It's the same dangers that are with any kind of, I think art, concern, which is speculation, but,
only speculation. There are some platforms now who have so many problems, in the blockchain world.
Yeah, I guess the idea of hacking is also potentially a problem. I think it's easier to hack somebody's wallet and steal their NFTs than it is to break into somebody's, home and steal their art, simply because of the physical nature of physical art. So I think hacking risk is definitely one to be aware of. But that's mostly it. I think that, the price is just price. And again, there's a lot of people that have been burned in the contemporary art world for kind of buying at the peak and buying with their ears. So a lot of the same lessons apply, right? Buy things that you have a personal connection with, that you love. Buy things that have a critical significance or some type of, interest or consensus from, curators and collectors and institutions around.
But so many of the platforms promoting NFT have collapsed. Not only NFT, I mean, blockchain, this money have collapsed. It gives a feeling of insecurity, no?
Well, I mean, when Paddle 8 collapsed, people didn't stop buying art, right? These are just platforms. When some institutions or nonprofits go out of business, you don't stop looking at the art. The art and the platform are completely different. They represent different kind of aspects of the kind of food chain. And yes, some of these platforms have gone out of business, but these aren't generally art platforms. So I'm not exactly sure which ones you're talking about. Like FTX was a trading platform. That's like saying if, the New York Stock Exchange went out of business, you would stop buying, artwork. They're completely unrelated.
But the currency used is the same.
Sure, but the US dollar hasn't collapsed just because some, kind of exchanges collapsed, right? And Ethereum is still the second largest, cryptocurrency in the world, and has daily volume of I don't even know how much kind of volume it has on a daily basis, but I imagine it's somewhere along the lines of $4.2 billion traded daily with a market cap of $145 billion. So the idea that this is collapsing, like Ethereum is going to collapse, is probably not that realistic.
Bon, merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Judith.